He's like, it's pretty sweet. Pretty happy that it happened. Cool moment for the 23-year-old. One of 5 different scorers for the Bruins last night. Kind of makes you wonder why he was out of the lineup to start the postseason. More size for the Bruins, though I wouldn't consider him the most physical. We'll get to all your thoughts here. Hour number 2, Jones and Mego with Arcan. A reminder, it's 2 for Tuesday on WEEI. Another pair of tickets to give away to the Red Sox and the Nationals at 3:30. So stay tuned for that. We'll mix in some Patriots thoughts later on this hour. Some Celtics thoughts as well. Game 1 tonight at TD Garden against the Cavs. Anybody think Cleveland can get a game off the Celtics? Plus, we'll get into Kristaps Porzingis, the latest, with his recovery. But let's focus in on the Bruins. Lohrei, by the way, has started to get more and more time. Not as much last night, but 14, 17, 16, 21, 19, back down to 16 plus last night. They're starting to rely on him a little bit more, and he does look very comfortable. And he's added another dynamic. You notice it when he's carrying the puck or entering the zone, and that's something that's been very useful for them. And when he's in his own zone, he's not getting completely caved in. Again, I don't think he's the most physical, but he's not getting completely caved in like Grizzlick or someone had been.
Yeah. Yeah, look, I don't want to go back to Grizzlick. It feels like old news at this point. It'd be nice, I like the way that he pairs with McAvoy, but it would be nice to have somebody that he could pair with out there that would take some of the stress off McAvoy, because McAvoy's ice time does feel a little ridiculous.
Well, what's he at? I'll look him up right now, but what's he at night to night?
He was doing wasn't he doing around 26 minutes or something crazy?
To me, and I know there were some overtime games mixed in there, but
24-30 last.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's what.
That's last night. If he's last series.
Okay, but I'm saying some of those were overtime games, right? So, I mean, you're going to play more minutes in these overtime games. He played 29 minutes in Game 4. That was an overtime game. He played almost 30 in Game 5 and Game 7. Those are both overtime games. Mm-hmm. He was 27 in Game 6 against Toronto. It's a number one defenseman do. I mean, so if he's a number one defenseman, that's what he's going to do. I don't mind him being the guy to bring Lohrei along. And then you can pick and choose your spots where, you sit Lohrei down and you double shift McAvoy or give him extra, opportunities out there. So I don't personally mind that. But Lohrai's been a revelation is too strong, but it was a nice night for him last night and a beautiful goal after he had a wide open net. And it just looks like another one of these guys that Sweeney has kind of found that have come up here and helped the Bruins. So I know I hear over and over and over again, and I've said this. I'm like, man, Sweeney's drafting track record really blows, and it's going to come back to bite him. And we all talk about was it the 2016 NHL draft was his first, 2015?
Yes.
What year was it? Where, they're missing out on all these top flight players, and they wind up taking Zaboral, who I think a lot of people defended that pick at the time. The Bruins needed defensive help. They drafted DeBrusk, who has been fine. And then they reached, which was the real criticism, for Senyshyn in that draft. I think that kind of framed it for a while.
Then they drafted Carlo in the second
round.
round.
I mean, he hasn't had big, massive impacts, but when you're getting guys who he's able to find, these are young players. These aren't all draft picks, but you're finding Brazeau and you're finding Lohrei, Swayman, for God's sakes. I don't know if he's finding young players like this and they're contributing to the team. What do I really care if they're not knocking it out of the park with draft picks? And what do I care about the Bruins making draft picks and developing a pipeline? I'd rather have them giving up their picks, finding guys in the 4th, 5th, 6th round, undrafted guys, contributing. I think Sweeney's largely been pretty good at that. And I think, especially in a year where they were hamstrung against the cap, getting guys like this to come up and contribute have been huge. And I think Sweeney does deserve some credit for that.
Yeah, I wouldn't go over the top because I think that you're still riding the coattails a little bit of earlier drafts where obviously you have Marchand, you have the year before Sweeney got in there, you have David Pastrnak. So, those are still your top flight players.
I know, but who's been their best player? Swayman. That has to have been a Sweeney guy. That was a Sweeney guy.
Swayman was, yeah.
And so, to me, he's carried the whole team.
He was drafted 2017.
Yeah, and what round was he?
4th round.
Yeah, exactly. So, I guess I don't really care when it comes to, and I said this last week, we were talking about his job security. This is how I felt about Dombrowski. People were crying about the Red Sox farm system for years. I'm like, I got to be honest, I don't care. They have talent at the major league level. They continue to find pieces from the minor leagues, regardless of where they were brought in. I think Sweeney's been pretty good at that. Now, look, if they would have choked against the Leafs, there were going to be mass organizational changes. But this is when we started talking about that last week, and then Lohrei has a big game, and I want to circle back to it.
So how about, though, them not being able to bring in more help at the deadline because they're unable to move Linus Ullmark? because of his no trade clause.
Yeah, but that has nothing to do with his drafting. I'm not telling you he's been a perfect GM.
Okay,
but
well,
that has nothing
sorry,
to do
I
with...
thought we were looking at his overall job. We're just talking about him getting crushed.
Yeah, well, let's look at his overall job. I mean, Allmark is a strike against him, but his deadlines have largely been really good.
His deadlines have been the best thing he's done.
So, I don't know. I mean, if you want to, let's do his whole job if you want. That's fine with me. But Allmark was a mistake. Signing Allmark was a mistake. Giving him the no movement clause he gave him was a mistake. All of that was a mistake. I think they overpaid for him in the first place. I think they stuck with him for too long. They gave him too much control, but that's the NHL. So yeah, I never liked the Allmark signing. Not from day one. I would have traded him last year at the deadline, as you know. I would have traded him 18 billion times. He should never play again in the postseason. Fine. But Sweeney at the deadline, I think, has largely been good. He hasn't really signed any big ticket free agents. They're going to have some cap space this offseason, so we'll see. I just think the drafting thing is way overblown. You hear that a lot with him. And then they find guys like Lohrei, and I'm like, guess what? Maybe it's not so bad. That's all I'm saying.
Maybe, but also you're talking about a Bruins team that evolved from some great drafts where they had all their big young forwards that played all these years, and some of them probably hung on a little too long, and some of them are still here now. But, that was a crop of forwards, and I include, what's his name, who got hit in the head there? I can't remember. Anyway, so I consider
who are you talking about?
Who got injured, and then had epilepsy. You know who I'm talking about? Got hit by Mac Cook.
A prospect?
No.
Savard.
Yeah, right. Mark
I'm
Savard.
sorry. I thought you were talking about a prospect.
I was thinking of Savard. I couldn't think of his name, but he was part of that group too. He was part of the Lucic and Bergeron and Krejci and Marchand and all those forwards kind of growing up together. So when you have a nice core like that, that's one thing. I don't know that this Bruins team has that kind of core. Pasternak, McAvoy, Swayman, I think, sort of coming on to be part of it right now, but that's not enough.
Said he's the best player on the team.
I think Swayman is now. He's the best player in the league.
Say he's part of the core?
Well, I mean, he wasn't a full-time goalie this year. What I mean is, in terms of roster building, they didn't dedicate all that and just say, all right, Swayman's our guy. They're still, as you said, Mego, giving $5 million a year to Linus Ullmark, so they don't consider him that right now. And I don't think guys like Mason Lohrei and John Beecher and some of the other first-round picks recently are considered part of that core yet, or part of a group that's going to be taking this team into the next generation. That's something that I'd like to see as Marchand gets older and as, Pasternak goes into his 30s and the rest of these guys start to age out. I just feel like there's not much behind them.
No, and look, I think that's fair, but maybe there's more there than we hear about and we give it credit for, and Lohrei is another example of that.